Mr. Sohi. Next, we have Mr. Bachrach. Mr. Bachrach, the floor is yours. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cartwright, one of the interesting aspects of this whole P3 debate is the concept of risk. And we often hear from advocates of P3's that P3's allow the transfer of risk off the public sector and onto the private sector. And yet at our last meeting, Mr. Corey, the CEO of the Infrastructure Bank, said that the bank was considering a $655 million investment in a power line in order to transfer risk from the private sector to the public sector to quote, de-risk the project. What does the record say about risk transfer and public-private partnerships?
I think there's a variety of experiences, but largely what happens is one of two things. The proponents, and they're largely consortia, and this is important to understand how big these projects have become and why it's many often global firms that are bidding on infrastructure here in Canada. The proponents have to put in extra costs to take into account the unknown. So when you've got a construction contract, that's one kind of thing. When you're talking about taking over the entire maintenance and operation of then you increase the unknown. So they've had the numbers to go in. And if something happens, they come back to governments and say, I'm sorry, our hand is out, we want money back. And we just saw that happen with the crosstown line in Ontario. We saw in the UK, when they decided it was too much, they just went bankrupt and walked away. We saw that with the Hamilton sewage situation where a private P3 was put together and it changed hands 3 times. We've seen that with Highway 407 where there's supposed to be the risk to say we'll make sure that trucks can operate on 407 so we can support our manufacturing industry. And then when it didn't suit them and they priced it out of the market, they were forgiven $1 billion penalty they should have paid in order to serve the public interest. And so time after time after time, you see that the setup works in theory one way and in reality a very different way. And the public interest is not served. This bank should go back and focus its investment in supporting public enterprise and public assets.